Hello everyone and welcome to Project Insights Project Management webinar. The topic for today, how to start a project on the right track. Just a few things to note before we get started. All participants will be put on mute. However, any questions you have are more than welcome. Please use your question box, which you can find on your GoToWebinar dashboard, and post your questions there. And we will try to answer all of your questions during the session, but if we can't, make sure to register for our following session, which is a continuation of today's presentation. Also, please note that all of our PM training sessions are valid for 1 PDU free of charge. However, you must be in attendance for the full session. I will email you your PDU certificate by the end of today. So I do please ask that you hold off on emailing me about your certificate until then. And for all other PDU information, please visit our PI community, type in PDU in the search, and you will find the PMI rules in an article called Webinars and PDUs. Also, please note, for those of you that are interested, the recording and slides will also be available to you. They will be sent via email by tomorrow. My name is Denise, and I will be your moderator for today. I'm on the marketing team here at Project Insight. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to reach me at denise.rodriguez@projectinsight.com. If you're not already familiar with Project Insight, we're a cloud-based project management solution. We work with two kinds of companies, those that are rapidly growing and need to scale the way they're managing their projects, and those who want greater visibility across their project portfolio, want more insight into the workloads of their resources, and want a better way to collaborate on projects among team members. If any of these sound familiar to you and you would like to learn more, please feel free to give us a call, send us an email, or of course you can always request your free demo at projectinsight.net. I'd like to give a warm welcome to our presenter today, Diane Buckley. Diane is the CEO of Core Performance Concepts. CPC helps companies by training team members in project management, PMP preparation, leadership, and business analysis. Diane has an MBA and a PMP and over 30 years of experience in the PM industry. Welcome, Diane. Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Denise, and hello, everybody. And happy February 8th, right? Year's already a month into it. I was like, oh my God.
It's pretty scary.
It is. Next thing you know, it'll be New Year's.
Oh, no.
All right. Excellent. So how's everybody doing today? Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And what we're going to talk about on this session is really, some of the struggles that project managers have, and what are some of the tools that we may not be using to its full extent to ensure that we minimize those struggles that we have. Because, again, project management is hard. Project managers are the people that, have to deal with the problems when things aren't going well. And part of the reason why things don't go well is because we are dealing with people, and people don't always follow process. And so what we're going to talk about today is one of the tools that we have at our fingertips that can be used to help ensure that people stay on track, that they understand what they're expected to do, and can deliver on that project successfully. So many of us, I know most of us are PMPs that are on this call, but many of us deal with customers, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer. And there's a survey that was done back in 2005, and I don't think it's that far off. It probably is still valid. I probably should look and see if it's anything been updated. But they queried companies and the people inside companies to say, why do customers leave? And then they queried actual customers and asked them, why do they leave? And if you notice, there's some big discrepancies here. Customer service. What is it that we perceive that we're delivering on great customer service, but the customer says no. I was actually on the phone with a company the other day, and I was not feeling the customer service love for sure. One of my big pet peeves is having to ask people, it seems like it's all the time too, can I speak to your supervisor? And then when they say the supervisor isn't available, that gets me even more upset. So it's like the people that are delivering, the person on the other end of the phone, thinks they're giving great customer service, but the customer, myself, who is not feeling like they're being appreciated, is saying, sorry, no. One of the main reasons why customers leave is because we're not delivering well. The other thing, which is kind of interesting, companies tend to think that customers leave because of price. And that's not really the case. And I'll use the example, again, my call the other day, the gentleman on the phone was saying, well, for you to get out of your contract, and it wasn't a telephone company, by the way, for you to get out of your contract, you still have a year and a half on your contract, so therefore you have to pay $400 and something to get out of my contract. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've been a customer of yours for 10 years. Just because I re-signed a contract a couple years ago, you're telling me that you're not going to give me any consideration for being a customer of 10 years. And he said basically no. And he goes, well, why, if you have a client, and I said, well, I'm a business owner. And he says, well, if you have a client and they've signed a contract, wouldn't you want that client to pay according to the contract? I said, I would. However, if I have a long-term client that is asking for a little exception, and it is little, I would give it to them because the relationship is more important than the $150 or the $400. It really comes down to that. And so this particular one here, when we talk about price, I can totally relate to that. We think as corporate people that the customers are, very sensitive to price. That's not it. They're more sensitive to the relationship and to that customer service. They will leave faster because of customer service than they will on price. And if they're getting customer service, they're absolutely willing to pay price. But actually, this little one should be up higher. The last one is supposed to be about needs change, not the other. Let's fix that real quick. Here, fixed. All done. And needs changed. So one of the things that companies think is that customers leave because they've changed the requirements. And that's not true. I think what this is telling me is that customers understand that they are going to change requirements, and they're okay with dealing with changes as long as it's reasonable. So how does this all relate to a tool for our project managers? Well, the tool we're going to talk about today is our project charter. And there's a couple reasons why project managers feel that projects fail. And one of the main ones is lack of senior support. A lot of times we see projects get started. We know there's going to be challenges. We know there's going to be issues. We know there's going to be frustration. What we need to ensure success is a consistent message and a leadership team that helps support us and not just yell at us. You probably all can kind of feel that one, right? What happens when something's going wrong? Are you feeling like people are yelling at you, or feeling like you're getting the support? And a lot of times the project managers are the messengers. We're the ones that have to communicate what's going on and what the challenges we're having and trying to get that support. Another reason for project failure is scope creep. And this kind of plays into the whole customer relationship. How are we managing those changes that those customers are asking for? Are we letting the customer do everything, walk all over us and let them make changes without any control in place? Are we being too controlling would be another end of it, but that's probably not the worst thing. But this number two reason why projects tend to fail is because we allow scope creep. And I'm not sitting here saying that you, the project manager, allow scope creep, although that's part of it. The whole team has to understand what the scope is in order for us to truly control scope creep. So what we're going to talk about today is that project charter. And it's about understanding the need. We have customers, whether they're internal or external, that come to us and say, I want to make a change. I need a project initiated. What are we doing in the very beginning to really understand what that project is about and how it impacts that customer? So I want to make sure that everybody understands that during the course of this webinar, please feel free to enter your questions in the question box, and Denise will be monitoring that as we go along, and she'll interrupt me when she sees some good questions out there. But I definitely want to have some interaction with everybody and have you kind of put your questions forward. As we get through, we're going to go through this particular tool.
Dan, I think we lost your audio. Okay, guys, give us a second. I think Diane lost audio. Hey, guys, please hang on. I see and I know that we lost Diane, so let's just give her a second, see if she can call right back in.
Hello?
There she is.
I know. Something happened there with my phone. I don't know what happened. All right, I'm back. All right, well, I was giving everybody time to put their questions in. There you go. Everybody had time to put their questions in, so I'm sorry about that. All of a sudden, my phone just kind of went by. All right, we're back. So, you know, what we're going to do is we really want to make sure that we understand what this project is about. And if we leverage the project charter to the best, to the degree that it should be leveraged, we can help, A, make our customers happier, B, get the support we need from senior management, and C, manage scope creep better. So this is probably what you all feel like at times when you're working on your project. And this is why I say project management is hard. And if it wasn't hard, you know, it wouldn't be as critical to organizational success as it is. You know, basically you've got that project team. You're getting pulled in many different ways. You've got vendors pulling on you. You've got customers pulling on you. You've got engineering or the technology people. You've got the executives pulling on you. You've got sales pulling on you. You've got, you know, customer support people pulling on you. And it is really hard to ensure that we are communicating well. And again, the purpose of a project charter is just that. It's about communication. And many of you have heard this, the saying that 90% of a project manager's job is communication. And honestly, I'd probably say 150% of your job is communication. You know, you're really not doing the work. You are ensuring that everybody is getting their work done so that we can successfully deliver on the project. So what is a project charter? It's basically a document issued by the project initiator or sponsor that formally authorizes the existence of a project and provides the project manager with the authority to apply organizational resources to project activities. Sounds awesome, all right? It's a piece of paper. But what are you doing with that piece of paper? I'd like to see by a show of hands that who in the audience today regularly or has a project. First question is, who has a project charter? If you go into your little attendee section of the panel, you can raise your hand. Who currently creates a project charter for every project they're doing? Oh, there's not a whole lot of hands there. Not a whole lot of hands, guys. You know, and so that's probably a problem. If you're having a lot of these challenges, I would strongly recommend that you start documenting and putting a project charter together. Now, in some cases, a project charter is the same thing as a statement of work. I have a client that, you know, their statements of work are pretty clear with regard to the overall scope of the project. But what's not in there is really the purpose. You know, so really what we just need to do when we get their statements of work is we reconfirm with the client what's in the statement of work, but then we also take a little time to talk about the purpose of that project. You know, so you might have a document that's similar to a charter but may not fulfill it all, completely. So it's not that you have to create a whole separate document, but you should augment the existing documents in a way that allows for some of the features and some of the recommendations I'll present here today. So those are the people that are actually using a charter. So of the people that are using a charter, raise your hand if you regularly review that charter and update it as the project progresses. Do you regularly review the charter and update it as the project progresses? So some of you that are using project charters are doing that as well, so that's great. And that's probably one of the biggest benefits, or one of the best things you can do as a project manager, is consider that project charter a living document. You should be referencing it on a regular basis. You should be reviewing it with the team on a regular basis and making sure that everybody understands what needs to be done. Now, you know what happens, and let's say you have a project that's a 3-month-long project. Okay, you kick off the project, you have your project charter, you put that document away, 3 months later you go live, and we've missed some things. Well, what happens naturally is that we forget what we started with, even if it was 3 months ago. Now consider that happening on a project that's 6 months in duration. How about a project that's 2 years in duration? What's the odds of somebody forgetting what was initially discussed in the project charter on a project that's 2 years long? Do you ever have people that come into a project midstream that weren't there from the day one, that didn't get the benefit of reviewing the project charter from the beginning? So I want you to have a project charter that is a living document for your project, and that you regularly go back to it, you regularly review it with the team, you regularly use it as a reference. So now let's talk about what's in that project charter.
Hey, Diane, here's a question for you.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
How would you suggest making it a living document when your company doesn't support it?
Well, I don't want to say that it's easy. It's, I might have a statement of work, and then as things do change, you document those changes and you record them as to why those changes happened and what. Because most of the time, and we're going to go through this a little bit, what constitutes a change. Most of the time, it's about clarification. So you might have in a statement of work that says you're implementing a new accounting system. Well, that's a very broad term. You're going to go through a business requirements session, and you're going to define what is actually the features and functions that need to be there. And you're going to have an opportunity to clarify that and to expand on that one line item that says new accounting system. So you should have a process that allows you to document and expand on the initial statement of work. If things are changing that are out of scope, that's a whole nother animal. Out of scope items should follow a change control process. And if approved, doesn't have to, can go back and update the original project charter. So I hope that answered the question. So what we're going to do here for the rest of the session here is go through an example. I have a sample project charter, and basically it's about a small art gallery that has been in business for a little while, and they're now wanting to create a website for their art gallery. So we're going to kind of go through that as an example and talk to you about the different sections that I see as beneficial for a charter and get your feedback on it as well. So the first part of the project charter is the description. This is where we want to briefly describe the final project or service. It really is the what. What are we doing? What is the final deliverable? So for our website, I can sit here and say, create a new website for our business. All right, great. Or I can say, create a new website that allows our customers to view the art that is on display currently and allows them to connect directly with each artist. Which one's more specific? To the point earlier about you could have a statement of work that says create a website, but you're going to go through a discussion and saying, what do we want this website to do? That website can do a lot of things. But what's the purpose? What is that description? Why are we doing it? Or more, this is right now, it's the what. The next one is the why. You know, this is where we say, what is the business need, and describe why the project was selected. You know, we want to clarify how this project is going to improve this organization. And I also talk about it from the perspective of the problem. What are we trying to solve? Why are we doing this? There's studies out there, and I'm sure many of you have experienced situations where you struggle with getting people to do what you want them to do. And there's studies out there that say a lot of times people don't do what you want them to do because they don't understand why. They haven't adapted, or they haven't absorbed, they haven't taken to heart the why of the project. So it's really important for us to make that distinction and make that clear to the project team. What is the problem we're trying to solve? Why is it important to the customer? Why, you know, when we get to the end, how does it change that customer's environment? It can't be just because. That's not a good answer. We tell that to our children, and therefore we shouldn't be telling that to our colleagues. And it shouldn't be because the CEO wants it. There has to be a real purpose. You'll never get accountability with your project team if they don't understand the why. So let's talk about our art gallery. So in order to differentiate ourselves from other art galleries in our marketplace, we want to be able to have a more interactive website that allows customers to browse all of the art on display, as well as other pieces by the artists we support. Given the customer access to the artist directly, we'll create a community around our art gallery, which should keep customers coming back for more. So does that make it more clear as to the reason we're putting this website together? Can you visualize what it's going to look like at the end? Isn't that much better than just saying, create a website? Any comments or questions at this point, Denise?
Yes, actually. Let's see. Once you have a project plan ready and project is in the execution stage, would you recommend to keep updating the project charter?
Um, that's similar to that last question. And yes, I mean, it depends on if something's in scope. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. But it is not, there's nothing wrong with updating the charter for clarification. So remember we said about communication? Let's say, you know, hey, this paragraph here about the website, perfectly clear to me. But as you're going through your requirements gathering session, you know, there's some additional questions and you have some choices with regard to how we're going to approach something. There's nothing wrong with you coming back to the charter and updating this business justification to make sure that you have it clear as to the why you're going to be delivering this website to the customer. So you certainly can. Go ahead.
So here's kind of like the follow-up to that. If you normally get the project charter signed off by the customer, so every time you go and you update it along the project, do you still have to gather customer approvals every time?
Well, that's a process discussion from within your organization. I mean, if, you know, I'm going to go back to my comment about good customer service. If you've got a good relationship with your customer, there's no issue with updating and getting sign-off on things. I find that your relationship with your customers is so important. And when you have good relationships, you have absolutely no problem getting things re-signed. And you can. I mean, it's not going to break. I mean, your organization might say you have to. In my world, it's like you've gotten sign off on the original. All you're really doing is you're basically adding more clarification to it. And, you know, sometimes, let's use an example. Sometimes that clarification can be built into your requirements documentation and referenced off the charter, not necessarily update the charter all the time. You don't want a charter being changed all the time. But when something is really important that makes sense to clarify, then yes, I would say go ahead and update it. And yes, I would say, you know, review it with the customer and make sure they're in agreement with what you just changed. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think it should be a problem. It just depends on what you're putting on there. And again, I'm not advocating, you know, you put all requirements. It's really about balance. You know, what is it that we need to know about the project that helps manage the scope of that project? Because the ultimate tool for scope management is this project charter. And, you know, I'll just use an example here. Let's just take this particular thing. It says, in order to differentiate ourselves from other art galleries in our marketplace. Well, you know what? Our marketplace might be too vague of a term. Maybe as you go through your discovery, you say, really, our marketplace is that, you know, the United States or Florida or, you know, Canada or just a particular region. You know, maybe marketplace is too vague, and you started going down a discussion. Well, what happens if we have different currencies and things like that? So we wait. Oh, hold on a second. We're talking about the U.S. So let me go back in here and modify the charter and say we're talking about the U.S. marketplace. Those are the kinds of things that you want to come back and clarify. Excellent questions, though. The next section of a project charter is the major components. What are your major deliverables? For those of us that have gotten our PMPs or are studying to get your PMP, you know, the PMBOK guide talks about deliverables. What are the major deliverables of this project? And this is just more details on the, it actually should be on the what. Hang on a second. Let's fix that. I changed it on another presentation and forgot this one, so sorry. It's more details on the what. It's a specific deliverable. So we said we're doing a website for the art gallery to have the artist information out there, to build a community. So the details would be find a hosted solution, have a main web page for the gallery, have individual pages for each artist, have a mechanism for the customers to communicate with the artist, and have a mechanism for the customers to interact with the website. So there's very high level. It doesn't have to be very detailed, but this is what launches you into your requirements gathering session. And when we get into requirements, every requirement needs to come back to one of these deliverables. If you're identifying requirements that don't talk to these deliverables, then you potentially have something that's out of scope. If there's a question as to whether or not a requirement fits into one of these deliverables, that's an opportunity for clarification and updating your project charter. The next section is about project objectives and objectives for those deliverables. So really, this is where I want you to quantify the criteria used to know whether or not you've gotten to the end. How many objectives should we have for a project? You know, should we have 10? Should we have 2? Should we have 1? The reality is you want to have as few as possible. How do I know that I've successfully delivered on this project? And it has to be something very objective that says a yes or a no. This is your proof. Did I successfully deliver? So we have 2 for this project. One is by the launch. We have a web page for every artist currently in the gallery. And number 2 is by launch. We have a way for customers to interact directly with the artists and other customers of the gallery. So I can sit here and I can get on the website and I can basically say yes or no to these objectives and make sure that it's very clear. Now, you can sit here and argue, well, you know, the font isn't right or the color isn't right. I mean, those are the detail requirements that you should have spelled out as part of your requirements. But to be able to say you successfully deliver, you have to know what those measurements are. I could have said that we start getting sales on the website, but I didn't, because it doesn't align itself with either the overall reason, business justification of the project, or my objective. So it wasn't something I needed to measure. Any questions at this point?
Let's see here. Can the change control process with documentation take care of updating early docs like the project charter?
Say that one more time, Denise.
Can a change control process with documentation take care of updating early docs like the project charter?
Yes, of course it could. I mean, every change we should go through, you know, a change control process. My main point here is changes to the project charter should be more about clarification, not additions. So there's definitely a difference. And when you're going through the change control process, you're going to determine whether this is something that's in scope or out of scope. If it's in scope, let's just say it's in scope, and you say, we definitely are going to do this as part of in scope, and you know, it looks like we should clarify our business justification a little bit more, then yeah, the change control process leads into that discussion, leads into an agreement that we're going to update the charter. If you say that it's out of scope, the change is out of scope, then you're probably going to go down a path of creating a change request, an additional contract with your customer. You could reference that change request in the charter as an update or not. I've seen companies do it both ways. Doesn't really matter, but that's a business choice. So, but you definitely want to have the change control process determine whether something's in scope or out of scope. The next section of the project charter is about constraints and assumptions. These are your limiting factors. These are your assumptions regarding the scope, the cost, the schedule, or the quality. So these are, again, your limitations. What are we limited in doing? And here's just a couple examples. Is, we want a hosted solution that costs no more than $500 per month. That's our budget. So that's important to know early on. We want the hosted solution to be simple enough for the gallery owners to update. So there's no plan to hire any webmaster at this time. So that's another important thing to know. Who's going to be maintaining this? And is it user-friendly enough so that the gallery owners can manage it themselves? And the third limitation is that our artists will be willing to interact with the customers on the website community. So it's one of those things where, hey, we're making that assumption, so maybe I need to, as an artist, as a gallery owner, I need to make sure that the artists, when we're bringing in their artwork, that they understand that this is an expectation. And if the artist really doesn't want to interact with the website, then maybe that's not an artist for our gallery, because we want this website to be successful, and we want the artist to be successful, and part of that challenge is to get both the technology and the artist merged together. And then the next section is risks. And risks are your gotchas. What could go wrong? And you're going to have some things that you know today, and you're going to have some things that you're going to know tomorrow. This is one area that I don't necessarily update it regularly. It's really important, from a kickoff standpoint, that people understand, what the primary risks are. You should be maintaining a risk register in general for your project. So I don't think it's necessary to come back and update this, but again, that's a personal preference. And for this particular project, we identified a couple risks. One, artists may not want to interact online, which would reflect poorly on the gallery. If some customer's on there and they're sending an email out to an artist and nobody ever responds to them, that would be a problem. And secondly, the hosted solution is too complicated for the gallery owners to maintain. So these are known risks. There could be more, but again, it's one of those things. It's trying to help you manage the expectations of this project and ensure that you can deliver to the stated need that we talked about in the justification. And then there's a few other components of the charter. If you have some items that need to be purchased, procured, you can add that into the charter. It's not necessarily always the case for every single project, but you should consider that. It's basically what you're going to buy. Then you have your project team and your stakeholders. So who are the people that you need on this team? Who are the people you need to have involved? This is the opportunity to really think about what are some of your critical resources, some of the critical people that need to be involved to make this a success. This is, really who is important. You understand your organization, you know what challenges your organization has, and what skills they have. So take the time to think through who you really need on this project. And again, you can't sit here and say, I need everybody. You gotta kind of pick your battles and make sure you get the resources you need to ensure success. Doesn't mean you get all the resources you need, but make sure you get the ones that are really important and critical. And then finally, project support and the authority, which basically says who's in charge. And in an ideal world, the project manager is in charge of the project, and they have the authority to leverage the resources within the organization to deliver on that project. So in some cases, I know many of you work in more matrix kind of organizations, so there might be kind of two people in charge, or you don't have full authority. There's various levels of authority. In an ideal world, the project manager has both the responsibility and the authority, and it should be the project manager that's listed out here at the end. So what I want to do here, just real quickly, I'm going to minimize this and bring this up. So here's an example of what we just talked about. Let me get to the top of the page. And it's a simple little document, Word document. I'm going to show you where you can download this yourself, but it helps kind of keep you on track. This is basically what we just talked about. It talks about the project itself, who the project manager is, my project description, which is the what, my business justification, which is the why, my major components, that additional what, my objectives, which is my proof, my constraints and assumptions, which are my limitations, my known risks or my gotchas, and then the remaining components of procurement items, project team members, and project support. And as you notice here, we identify the things that we're purchasing for the hosted website solution. We identify who the key members are. We definitely need the owners of the gallery involved. We need the artists involved. We need some customers involved. And Susan's going to be the project manager. So it's a nice, simple little document. It clearly articulates what we're trying to do. And I'll stop here real quick, Denise, to see if we have any questions.
Nope, keep on going.
Keep on going. All right. All right. So just to summarize, like we did, we want to talk about the what, the why, more details on what, the proof, the gotchas, what to buy, who's important, who's in charge. And that makes a very nice, complete project charter that is manageable, communicatable, that's a word, and referenceable. It makes it easy for people to know what's going on. And again, that's a nice, simple little example. For our next session, what I would encourage you guys to do is download a sample charter. I'll leave this up here, and Denise, if you want to cut and paste this into the chat, but you can download that Word document of that sample charter and put your own example together. And if you want me to critique it in the next section, you can send that to charterreview@cpconcepts.net, and I would be happy to review it for you. We've got a couple that we've had in the past that we can go over, and we can kind of talk about what's good about it, what's bad about it. I don't have to say your name. I don't have to share what company. We can keep it anonymous. But I'd be happy to review any of those charters that you guys have to see if we can help you improve on how you put those charters together. Awesome. Well, we went through that fairly quickly, so I want to say if there are any other questions that you guys have, I'm open for questions.
Let's see here. How do you make changes or updates to the document if you're gathering signatures at the beginning?
That's a good question. So again, it's about versioning, and whenever you make a change, you should be documenting what those changes are. And if they warrant review and resignature, it's just another version. It's just a historical document of what's been going on with the project. And wouldn't it be great at the end of the project that you can go back to that project charter and say, what, this shows me what we actually did deliver. Because too often we have a project charter that says one thing, and what ends up being delivered to something totally different. And then from a contractual standpoint, you can get yourself in trouble there. So it is best practices. It is a good habit. It is a discipline. As things evolve, you should be documenting those changes, and you should be updating versions where necessary. In a perfect world, you define it once, and what comes out at the end is what you originally defined. But we know, if you've been a project manager for any length of time, that doesn't always happen. And most of the time, that initial project charter is not clear enough to truly deliver on, and there are things that are going to have to be clarified and be expanded on and elaborated on to ensure that you deliver on the problem, on the why of the project. It's more important to ensure that you're delivering on the why than it is really on the what. So we got to make sure that we're delivering and solving the problem. Well, Denise, I think I'll turn it back to you, and we'll go from there.
Let's see here. Do we have time for 2 more questions, Diane?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Of course we do.
No worries. So we have here, many charters have a what's out section. Do you see any value in having this section?
Things that are excluded, yes, there is. And I would, a lot of times I see that in a couple places. You can put that in the charter, or you can put it in your requirements. Well, a lot of times I see it when in the business requirements document where it says, what are the requirements that are included and what are the things that are excluded. I don't have a problem articulating things that are excluded in the project charter. There can be big things, kind of like where we talked about on the assumptions with regard to the hosted solution. Maybe you say you don't have the ability to hire any new resources or things like that. You can certainly put them at the charter level, but a lot of times I see them in the requirements documents.
Thank you. Here's another one. Can chartering methodology be applied to doing work on a PMO, such as keeping track of guideline documentation?
You can apply, if I understand the question correctly, you can apply a charter methodology, if you want to call it that, to any project you're doing. So if you think of the charter as, this is the description of my problem and the description of what I'm trying to solve for, you can use a charter on any kind of project, including an internal project. And I would totally recommend that. Anything else, Denise? Did we lose Denise?
Sorry, I was on mute. Is there a standard or guideline on how to do version control on a project charter?
You know what? I am going to save that one for our next session. I think I'm hearing lots and lots of questions. I think lots and lots of questions on change management. So I think what we'll do is we'll take some of these questions and we'll talk about the charter and we'll talk about, change management activities as it relates to the charter. I think that's an awesome one.
All right. Well, that said, I think I'll just go through a few more slides, and there's a lot of questions. So we can definitely get, yes, we can definitely get to those in our next webinar. But until then, guys, there is a special promotion brought to you by Core Performance Concepts. If you'd like to continue improving your project management skills, they are offering a 10% discount for online courses, so go ahead and check them out today. I will copy and paste that link into your chat box. All right, there you go. So your upcoming webinars, this will be PM in practice or part 2 of how to start a project on the right track. And for this part 2 of the project charter, we will focus on applying concepts into practice. Dan will select a few submissions from this session, as she talked about earlier today, to review and provide feedback on the do's and don'ts of creating and managing project charter through the life of the project. And of course, we'll also use that time to answer a lot of the questions and scenarios we have today. So if you have not already registered for that, that is coming up on Wednesday, February 22nd, and our usual time, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. As far as your PDU, you will automatically receive your PDU certificate via email by the end of today. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, anything else I can help you with, please feel free to email me at denise.rodriguez@projectinsight.com, and you will earn 1 PDU per webinar attended. Please remember you must have been in the full session to receive your certificate. And to register your PDU, you will log into PMI.org, log in as a member of PMI, select course or training, and fill out all the information below, which will also be available in your PDU certificate. And for those of you asking about the recording and slides, this will also be available to you by tomorrow morning. Also be sent via email, so just keep an eye in your inbox. And if it's not there, also always make sure to check your spam or junk folders, just to make sure we get them out of there. Let's see. And for those on social media, I'd like to invite you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media channels. Our handle on Twitter is @ProjectInsight. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for the latest in PI news. And in our Project Insight community, you'll find many recorded videos and webinars for you to watch and learn from. You can sign up for your next project management training. We have IT methodology and Agile. Hopefully we get some leadership webinars coming soon. And we also do have our product trainings as well. So that's all we have for you today. Thank you, Diane, for an excellent presentation today, and we'd like to thank our audience, as usual, for being awesome and for really being engaged today. We have a lot of really good questions and comments. So I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Until then, take care, guys.
See you then. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.